Hello. Hi, Byte Wellness fam. We are back with another Byte Wellness Wednesday. You all sent some great questions my way today. I answered a lot of them via text message, and then this presentation should answer many of the others. All right. So, all week we have been talking about not just how to build wellness habits, but specifically how to leverage our wellness assets to help us build healthy habits, reach our wellness goals. And so, our discussion question for the week was, can you name 3 assets that make it easier for you to practice healthy habits and reach your wellness goal? The follow up question was, are you taking advantage of them? So, if you got this question via text on Sunday, and you couldn't come up with an answer, then that might mean that you need to hear exactly what I'm about to tell you. We're going to go through a framework for being able to identify what a wellness asset is so that you can make more of it, right? You can expand it as much as possible. So, guys, remember the general idea in shifting behaviors and being able to reach wellness goals is that you've got this set of uh, factors and practices that work against you, and then you've got this set of factors that work for you. Last week, we talked about the factors that work against you, and we call those barriers. And this week, we're talking about the factors that work in your favor, the ones that work for you. Now, obviously, if you've got this balance, constant balance between the factors that work for you and the factors that work against you, your goal in shifting habits is to minimize the things working against you, minimize the barriers in your way, and maximize or leverage your assets, the things that are actually helping you reach your goal, right? And so these two are part of our BATS framework for how we build wellness habits. The BATS framework, because building wellness habits takes multiple tries, multiple at bats. You've got first addressing your barriers and then your assets, and then eventually building triggers to make your activity automated, and then making sure that you actually schedule time, you protect some time and space to practice your new skill. That's the only way it turns into a habit, through practice. So let's move forward with these assets. And, as we're thinking about how to identify a wellness asset, it helps to think in terms of big categories. So there's this, EMS um, acronym that we use to think through the major categories of wellness assets. And EMS is really fitting because it stands for Emergency Medical Services. So that's like when you call 911, and they send an ambulance because someone is sick or has fallen, is in an some sort of car accident. They need emergency services, like potentially life-saving services. That's when EMS gets called. So it makes sense that we would look to EMS to make the most of our assets, these factors that are going to push us forward. It's like the wind at our back, right? Helping us achieve our goals. So the E in EMS stands for enjoyment. A major, a majorly overlooked um, wellness asset is just the ability to enjoy whatever skill you're practicing, right? So that means, well, we'll go over what that means in just a second with each of our power four, uh, our big four wellness practices, our MVPs. Um, but then the next category of wellness assets is mastery. And so that's the M in EMS. And mastery is just, gaining a certain amount of expertise, even relative expertise in a subject or in practicing a skill. So it's really just about your know how. Do you know how to practice certain skills related to your wellness goals? If so, those are the skills that maybe you want to hit really hard. You can lean on those because you don't have to go through the extra effort of learning how to do them, right? So practicing them repeatedly happens much more smoothly for you. The third category of wellness asset is social support. This is the S in our EMS framework. And social support is really important because you can like practicing your skill all you want. You can know how to practice your skill, be an expert in it, but shifting habits is freaking hard. You have to overcome so much inertia that having people to kind of walk with you, push you along, motivate you ends up being really important. So there are two ways to think of social support. One is in terms of providing like emotional support. These are the folks who are going to give you the attaboys. They're going to pat you on the back. They're going to tell you you can do it. They're going to talk you through whatever your wellness goal is or whatever your challenges are, at getting to the next stage of your wellness goal. They're going to tell you, they might be accountability partners. They might be working out with you or trying new recipes with you. Or they might be people who are going to just give you a kind of a hard time, even if they're not doing it with you. Maybe they're people who know to call you up and say, did you work out this week? I know you're trying to work out more. So did you do it? And these are folks who you don't want to look stupid in front of. You don't want to let them down. You don't want to look silly. And so you have to keep your promise to yourself and them, right? That provides this negative incentive for doing your habit. If you don't do it, there's some bad outcome emotionally. So that's one way to think about social support, is this uh, emotional support. But the other way to think of social support is what, in research terms, we call instrumental support. But all that means is like, they actually help you with the specific skills or the specific resources you need to do your skill. So, like, they help you free up your time, they help you free up energy. They might bring you some healthy food to cook. They might bring you some cookbooks. They might get you like a gift card to a cooking class. They might send you resources so you can learn more. They might tell you about really useful programs like Byte Wellness. Like, you can be a source of social support to members in your community. You can yourself be an asset to them just by inviting them to join our community. Um, and so you need these two types of social support as much as possible. And if you have them, if you have people who are already in these roles, make sure that you lean on them. If you have people who aren't doing these things for you now, but you think they might, go ahead and just ask. The worst that can happen is that they tell you no, right? The worst they can say is, I'm not that invested in you. No, I won't be your accountability partner, or no, I can't help you free up your time or space or share resources with you. So if it's no, then it's not any worse off than where you were, but the answer just might be yes. And you just might be able to round off your EMS with these three categories of wellness assets. So, I mean, let's just sort of think through how to use your wellness assets across each of our big four movements, or rather, each of our big four wellness practices, right? We talk about how the big four wellness practices, this is their own EMS, the activities that can be life-saving on a regular basis. So eating, movement, eating whole food and minimally processed plant heavy diets, moving on a regular basis through exercise and non-sedentary behavior, getting enough high quality sleep, and then managing stress adequately. These all work together to lower the risk of the lifestyle related chronic diseases like high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, obesity. And And then they also work together to just make us feel better. Like we feel our best when we are eating, moving, sleeping well, and managing our stress. So we're going to take our wellness assets, our asset EMS, down the list of our top 4 behaviors. And we are going to just try to get some examples of what types of assets might exist in your life. And if they don't exist, these are assets you might want to cultivate. So, what does enjoyment have to do with eating? Like, what, in what ways could uh, in what ways could enjoyment play a role in your ability to shift towards healthier eating? So, there's like, the basic concept of just enjoying your food, and that's great, right? Like if you like the taste of vegetables, that's amazing. It's going to be that much easier for you to eat lots of veggies. You're going to want to eat more. Um if you know how to cook, you cook on a pretty regular basis, you feel comfortable cooking, that's an asset, right? Because you can easily add more whole food and minimally processed veggies to your diet if you're able to use a variety of recipes, make them really tasty. You can eat them at home, and that tends to be much less expensive than trying to find the vegan or plant heavy options eating out at a restaurant. So, actually having enjoying cooking, right? Enjoying that process of making food for yourself at home is going to be really helpful in shifting your eating habits. Um, you know, maybe you don't really enjoy cooking, but you like doing other things with veggies. So maybe you like making smoothies. If you just really love smoothies, then start experimenting with veggie smoothies. And so, spinach can fit pretty seamlessly into a wide variety of smoothie recipes without really shifting the flavor too much. Um, if you're somebody who likes trying new cooking methods, or you just got an air fryer, they're really popular these days. And if you just love using your air fryer, try air frying veggies. Um, if you're someone who really likes eating in community, so you get with people and you like these big feasts, and you really like, sitting and talking and sharing a good story and reconnecting with friends over food, then use that to your advantage. See if you can't make sure that a large percentage of the dishes available at these big feasts, these big family dinners, see if you can't make sure that they're mainly veggies or super plant heavy and minimally processed. If you can do that, then you don't have to sacrifice either or, um, socializing versus enjoying uh, a healthy diet. You can do both at the same time, and that's kind of like 2-for-1 enjoyment. So there are a ton of different ways enjoyment plays a role in eating. But then when you look at movement, really straightforward to see what role enjoyment plays as a wellness asset. It's, do you like the way that you're moving, right? How do you like to move? What is your favorite movement? I mean, we tend to think that, if you're going to lose weight, if you're going to be fit, if you're going to be healthy and add years to your life, we tend to imagine that you have to turn into this gym rat and you got to be in the gym on the stair climber and lifting weights. And, that provides a good amount of cardio and resistance work. And so those might not be bad options. But if you don't like lifting weights and you don't like the stair climber and like you'd rather be anywhere else on earth than in the gym, then maybe this isn't a sustainable habit shift for you. These aren't sustainable practices. And so you're probably not going to be able to develop this habit. Um, so maybe you just ask yourself, well, what do I like? Maybe you like dancing. Maybe you enroll in dance classes or you do virtual dance classes at home. You find free classes on YouTube, for example. Um, Maybe you like yoga. You can find plenty of yoga instruction in person or virtually. Maybe you like jumping rope. Maybe you like skating. Maybe you like playing tennis. Maybe you like playing basketball. Whatever it is that you enjoy, see if you can't just do more of that movement. How can you get more and more of the stuff that you enjoy? Okay. For sleep, enjoyment really comes into play when we're trying to solidify some of these sleep hygiene principles that set our bodies and brains up to go to sleep. So, you remember some of these things are like creating a bedtime ritual, right? So that you can go to sleep around the same time every night. And then also for those 1 to 2 hours before sleep, ideally, we are letting our bodies and our brains slow down. And the bedtime ritual is what signals to our bodies and brains it's time to slow down. And so people do things like drink relaxing tea, like peppermint tea, or sometimes chamomile to relax them. People might read books. Um, I know it's really common to watch television shows before bed, but one of our sleep hygiene principles is that you actually avoid these backlit LED screens. Um, for 1 to 2 hours before bedtime so that you don't disrupt the level of melatonin in your brain that is designed to rise at night and tell you to go to sleep. These really bright blue light backlit screens tend to decrease that level of melatonin and suppress it for an extended period of time, making it harder for you to go to sleep, even if you kind of feel like you've had a long day and you're tired. So, whatever that bedtime routine is, it shouldn't feel like a chore, right? These should be things that maybe you enjoy. If you have been meaning to read a certain book or certain articles, or, do like a logic puzzle like Sudoku, or just read magazines, right? Like even gossip. Even potentially listening to a podcast, potentially listening to a show or an audiobook. Just want you to avoid that screen if possible. But if you listen to it and put your phone or your device, turn it away from you so that you're not actually seeing that light right before bed, then that would be ideal. So just finding ways to enjoy your sleep, your pre-bedtime routine in order to get better sleep. And then for stress management, we kind of talked about this last week, but there are a bunch of different ways to self-manage stress. A bunch of different coping mechanisms, and we kind of talked about like triangle breathing and other forms of diaphragmatic breathing. um, there are other forms of sort of meditative exercise like yoga, like Tai Chi, um, even just sitting quietly. And then in last week's Wellness Wednesday session, one of our members mentioned that movement, like exercise, can actually do wonders for stress management. So there's actually some overlap in maybe doing movements that you really like skating, and also relieving stress at the same time. So you don't have to choose some really stodgy seeming activity uh, to relieve stress. You don't have to do the thing that you read in the magazine that that the celebrity recommended, um, if it's not an activity that you can actually look forward to. You can find a way to look forward to, to look forward to some stress management technique. If not, at least look forward to the end point. Once you've managed some stress, once you practice this activity and you start to feel more relaxed, you should at least be able to look forward to that. So, using mastery, how do we leverage mastery as a wellness asset for eating, movement, sleep, and stress management? So, we talked about this a little bit with eating. Where mastery comes in is, in large part in food prep, in being able to prepare recipes in a tasty way, but also in just general health and nutrition knowledge. So, if you're going to go shopping for veggies or any type of food that you're going to use to shift towards whole food, minimally processed, plant heavy eating, then you kind of have to know what that entails. So, first of all, you know what those definitions mean, and then you're able to go through the grocery store and decide which foods to purchase. And this stuff isn't easy, by the way. So, that's why here at Byte Wellness, we spend a lot of time just talking about nutrition so that you can make these decisions spur of the moment. But if you're not able really easily to identify what foods um, are healthful for you based on your set of risk factors and your health goals, then, maybe you back up and you first ask that question, right? You first seek to gain knowledge and mastery over uh discerning what is a healthful diet for you. And then once you've decided that, then you move forward with actually making the shift. So, this EMS, leveraging assets, of all these three categories, mastery is the one that's kind of the rate limiting step, because it's really hard to do an activity. You probably won't be doing it right, probably be doing it inefficiently if you don't actually know how. So, learning how suddenly becomes your short term goal. And then doing the activity on a regular basis in order to build a habit, that becomes your longer term goal. All right. And we can think of movement similarly. So if you saw some really cool exercise like on Instagram or TikTok, or your friend is doing it, um, but you don't actually know how to bend your body in that way or how to support yourself safely while you lift certain weights or while you twist and turn doing yoga, well then that's not the activity for you to start with right now. You can start perhaps learning those skills, in which case learning the skills becomes your short-term goal. So what I'm doing this month is I'm learning basic yoga, for example. Maybe you learn a sun salutation for that month and you get really comfortable moving through those positions. And then once you know how to support yourself, safely move through the positions, then you can set the goal of doing this every day or every other day in order to build a habit. But you can't build a habit in something if you don't know how to do it, because you're just not even going to practice it, right? The mastery barrier is just too great. But again, just like eating, when you do have mastery, when you flip it and think of it not as a barrier, but as an asset, you go so much farther. I mean, it's amazing how much you can accelerate your progress in like setting up a daily movement habit if you focus on activities that you know how to do very well, that you are very comfortable with, even if they are basic activities, even if they're not activities that you think of as traditional workouts. If you know how to do them and they involve moving your body, go in. Why not? Where mastery can be an asset in getting enough sleep is, it comes back to those sleep hygiene principles that we talked about with enjoyment. So, um, first of all, knowing the principles, knowing to avoid lights 1 to 2 hours before bed, start dimming lights in the house, avoiding these LED lights that tend to be in devices and now, unfortunately, in um, environmentally friendly lights in our homes. Uh, Avoiding substances like coffee and alcohol that can actually keep you awake for longer. And so avoiding those substances, alcohol for sure, 4 to 6 hours before bed, and coffee might want to avoid at least 6 to 8 hours before bed. Um, then you think about setting a consistent bedtime, so going to bed at about the same time every night, and then setting up a bedtime ritual beforehand to make sure that your body is trained to relax, your brain is able to let go around the time that it's time for bed. And then there's just keeping your bed as sacred for sleep, right? So, not generally exercising on the bed or using the bed to watch a bunch of TV, stream shows, um, not lying in bed to talk on the phone for extended periods of time. Um, and really, even though reading might be part of your pre bedtime ritual, really hoping not to read for longer than about 30 minutes, just not sitting in bed doing anything for longer than like 30 minutes, and usually not doing anything that doesn't lead directly to sleep when you do it. So if you were just reading during the day, random time, not planning to go to sleep, this isn't your bedtime, then I'd recommend that you do not read in bed. But if you're preparing for bedtime and reading is part of your bedtime ritual, then somehow brain is able to accommodate this difference, and brain is able to say, all right, reading in bed for this short period of time still leads to sleep. Whereas if you start reading in bed in the middle of the day, not associated with the bedtime, brain starts to get confused as to when sleep is supposed to happen. So, understanding the sleep hygiene principles, that's like a really big part of the mastery. And then the other step is just, getting some of those skills under your belt, really practicing them enough to feel comfortable with them, like feel comfortable with whatever your ritual is going to be, feel comfortable with dimming your lights, figuring out how to do that can be part of the mastery as a sleep asset. And then, there's stress management. So we're really here talking about like uh self-directed coping mechanisms and self-directed like de-stress activities, like as we said before, diaphragmatic breathing and other sort of meditative activities. And so it's pretty obvious where mastery falls in there. If you can pull one of these coping skills out of your hat at a moment's notice because you know how to do it, excellent. That's great. That's something that you can begin to do multiple times a day. Whatever the skill is, because with deep breathing and with meditative techniques, like there are so many different kinds. And if you've ever been to like a corporate retreat where they've had you do a breathing exercise, you probably had some instructions that are slightly different from what other people have heard in their uh, work retreats breathing exercise. And so there's a wide variety of ways to relax and to cope with stress, and you just kind of want to do the one that works for you and that you know how to do. Like lean on that. All right. Social support. How can we get people to support us socially in eating, movement, sleep, and stress management? We talked about this a little bit in defining what social support means as a wellness asset before, but just think about that person in your life who is your cheerleader. So we'll talk about the emotional component of social support. That's the person who's going to say, "I know you want to eat better." That's the person who's going to like text you and ask, what did you have for lunch? Did you add that extra salad like we talked about? That's the person who is maybe actually going to jump on board and try to shift their eating habits with you and be your accountability partner. Um, and then for the instrumental part of social support, like maybe, you haven't gone shopping in a while because you got little kids and it's really hard to take them shopping for groceries because they cry and they fall out in the storm, whatever. Well, then maybe your friend, maybe your family member, maybe your partner can keep the kids for a little while. Watch the kids while you go out and do the in-depth grocery shopping that you need to do to feed the family and begin shifting these eating patterns. As for movement, social support goes the same way. Anybody who's going to be an accountability partner, anybody who's going to help you exercise more, walk more, move more, etc., that's excellent. If you've got people in your life who want to do this with you, that's even better, as far as emotional support goes. And you guys remember, we've got this new year, new moves wellness challenge, and the link is actually down in the bottom left hand corner of the screen here. I'm going to circle it. So, this New Year, New Moves challenge will send you a daily text message for 28 days reminding you to work out and also sending you some workout inspo. So, if you find yourself needing more social support on this movement tip, then why don't you go ahead and sign up for our New Year, New Moves challenge? You can do it on your own time, and it's free. So get it while it's still free. What does instrumental support for movement? What does that look like? Similarly, if somebody needs to take over some of your duties at home or at work in order to give you the time and space to practice exercise, if somebody wants to like take you to their exercise class with them or sign you up for gym, get you like started on a gym membership, recommend a trainer, um, give you some exercise equipment for your house so you can work out from home. All that stuff can be incredibly helpful. Social support for sleep is a little bit more straightforward because really, and it's actually incredibly important here because one of the reasons that we don't get enough sleep is that we tell ourselves we have so much to do, and we really do, obviously, so much to do throughout the day, and then we allow those tasks to creep up in our to-do list, and then those become our top priorities, and somewhere along the way sleep falls off the list. So if you can find someone who's going to hold you accountable, who knows that you're trying to get better sleep and is going to kind of check in and ask, "Hey, how are you sleeping? Were you able to stop work and go to bed? Were you able to get the kids in bed in time and go to bed? Were you able to like um work on shifting some of your habits and some of your other timings so that you'll be able to you'll be able to get to sleep as you promised yourself?" Then yeah, that's really helpful from an accountability perspective. From an instrumental support perspective, uh, that's where we really need help from family and friends, because we need folks, and even really coworkers, right? We need people on our side to maybe acknowledge that sleep is a priority for us. And that means that maybe they take some tasks off of our plate so that we can move through that list a little bit more quickly throughout the day. And when it's time to sleep, we can actually make time for sleep instead of feeling like you have everything else to wrap up before you're allowed to sleep. So, instrumental social support is priceless when it comes for sleep. And if you got somebody who can help you do that, please lean on them, take advantage, ask for the help, ask for what you need, especially if you think that someone will give it to you. As for stress management, the instrumental support in stress management works kind of similar to sleep. So people who are going to understand that you need to take time to relax, you need to maybe limit certain pressures and responsibilities. You need to take time out to, say, have a visit with your therapist, for example. Um, those are folks who can maybe take some of these tasks, responsibilities off your plate, or be understanding if you need to be a little bit more flexible with deadlines in order to better manage your stress. So that's where that instrumental support is a really big deal for sleep and stress management. Um, the emotional form of support is really helpful for stress management. I mean, right? Like talking with our friends about our stressors is one way to make sense of them and also to actually decompress a little bit. So, having folks on your team who are willing to listen to you, lend an ear, maybe even offer some solutions, like that's priceless. That is definitely a wellness asset. So, at this point, I hope that you guys have gotten the picture and you see that there are just a bunch of different ways to use the EMS of your wellness assets to save yourself, right? Heal your body, save your wellness goals, um, find ways to practice new skills in the categories of eating and movement and sleep and stress management. You can do all of that um, using EMS wellness assets, finding a way to identify them, and then maximize them as much as possible because you want them to overpower those barriers for sure. All right. Happy, healthy living, Byte Wellness. Talk to